the architectural levels of components in MyBatis. Here you can see architectural levels of components. This is another architecture diagram of MyBatis. From the perspective of MyBatis code implementation, the main components of MyBatis are as follows. A SQL session as the main top-level API for MyBatis work. It represents the session that interacts with the database and completes the necessary database addition, deletion, modification, and query functions. Executor. MyBatis executor is the core of the MyBatis scheduling, responsible for the SQL statement generation and query cache maintenance. Statement handler encapsulates the JDBC statement operation and is responsible for operation of JDBC statements such as settings parameters and converting the statement result set into a list set. Parameter handler responsible for converting the parameters passed by the user into the parameters required by the JDBC statement. Result set handler responsible for converting the result set object returned by JDBC into the collection of type list. Type handler responsible for mapping and conversion between Java data types and JDBC types. Mapped statement maintains the encapsulation of the select, update, delete, insert node. SQL source responsible for dynamically generating SQL statement based on the parameter object passed by the user, encapsulating the information in bound SQL object and returning it. Bound SQL represents the dynamically generated SQL statement and corresponding parameter information. Configuration. All configuration information of MyBatis is maintained in the configuration object. Here, configuration layer. Configuration layer determines how MyBatis works. MyBatis provides two configuration methods. Based on XML configuration and Java API based approach. SQL session factory builder will create SQL session factory according to the configuration. SQL session factory is responsible for creating SQL sessions. Interface layer. Interface layer is responsible for the way of interacting with the database. There are two ways to interact between MyBatis and the database. Uses SQL session. SQL session encapsulates all SQL execution statement obtained the mapper and manages the transaction method. Users only need to pass this in the statement ID and query parameters to the SQL session object, and they can interact with the database easily. The disadvantage of this approach is that it does not confirm the paradigm of object-oriented programming. 2. Uses the mapper interface. MyBatis will generate a mapper instance through the dynamic proxy mechanism according to the method information declared by the corresponding interface. MyBatis will determine the statement ID according to the method name and parameter type of this method, and then map it with the SQL session. The bottom layer interact with the database is completed through SQL session. Data processing layer. The data processing layer can be said to be the core of MyBatis. In a big way, it has to complete two functions. According to the past parameter statement and parameters. Dynamic statement generation can be said to be very elegant design of the MyBatis framework. MyBatis uses OGNL to dynamically construct SQL statement through the parameter values passed in, making MyBatis highly flexible and extensible. Parameter mapping refers to the conversion between Java data type and JDBC data type. There are two processes here. In the query phase, we need to convert Java type data into JDBC type data through prepared statement dot set xx method, set the value, and the other is to convert the JDBC data type of the result, set query result into Java data type. 2. Execute SQL statement and processes the response result set. After the dynamic SQL statement is generated, MyBatis will execute the SQL statement and convert the result set that may be returned into a list. In the processing of the result set, MyBatis supports supports one-to-many and many-to-one conversions of the result set relationship. And there are two supports methods. One is the query of the nested query statement, and the other is the query of the nested result set. Frame support layer. First, transaction management mechanism. MyBatis abstract the transaction into transaction interface. Transaction management of MyBatis is divided into two forms. Use the JDBC transaction management mechanism, that is the use of java.sql.connection object to complete the commit, rollback, close, etc. of the transaction. Use managed transaction management mechanism. MyBatis does not implement transaction management by itself, but allow program container such as JBoss WebLogic to achieve transaction management. 2. Connection pool management. 3. SQL statement configuration supports two ways: XML configuration and annotation configuration. 4. Cache mechanism. MyBatis adopts two-level cache structure. Level 1 cache is the session level 1 cache, is also called local cache. And L2 cache is the application level cache. The user configured the cache enable equal true to enable the L2 cache. Here you can see a configuration layer. Here you can see SQL session factory builder is connected to SQL session factory, and configuration layer is connected to interface layer. Here mapper interacts with SQL session. Select XXX, insert, update, delete, flush statements, clear cache, close, commit, and rollback are connected to SQL session. Here data processing layer, parameter handler, SQL source, executor, and result set handler are inside data processing layer. Data processing and here parameter handler is connected to SQL source, and SQL source is connected to executor, and executor is connected to result set handler. Here you can see a frame support layer. Now this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for watching it.